Today we're going to be talking about compound interest. Einstein said that compound interest was the eighth wonder of the world, and the reason that he said that is because you put your money aside, that money starts working for you, generating some kind of a return, and that return that is generated also then starts working for you and generating another return. And so you end up with a sort of an upward curve in the valuation of a portfolio that's doing that. Now, you can get to a compound interest calculator by going to freedomisn'tfree.co.uk, jump to Tools, hit the compound interest calculator, and you'll be presented with a bunch of inputs, a bunch of outputs, a graph here that allows you to visualize what's going on, and also a spreadsheet style output that allows you to download as a CSV. That's just something you can import into Excel or to Google Sheets if that's where you prefer to play around with your results. So just to get started here, I'm just going to bring the regular contribution down to zero. We're just going to look at a 20-year period, 7% return with an initial investment of £10,000. Now, as you can see here, what that does for you is you can see that your investment, your initial investment, is flat, and the total value continues to go up on its own over time of this investment. Now, you end up with £40,000 at the end of the period on that £10,000 that you've invested, and of that £40,000, £30,000 is just interest. That's just money that has been generated by the money that you set aside. Now, to demonstrate how this changes, depending on how you move your time period, you can jump up to 30 years, and you'll see that it becomes even more significant, the interest portion of your total value at the end of the period if the period is longer. Now, that's extremely important because it means that the earlier you start doing this, if you're saving for retirement, for example, the better off you're going to be. But there are other factors too. So most people aren't actually just throwing £10,000 in at the age of, 20 and then waiting for 30 years, 40 years. What they're actually doing is maybe they start with an initial investment, but then they dollar cost average over time or pound cost average. That basically means just putting in a bit of money, normally every month when their paycheck comes in. And we can model that by just saying, right, let's say it's a £500 a month contribution, and we can see now how this affects our graph. So the key thing to notice here is that the initial investment is going up in a sort of a linear way, whereas the growth, the actual total value of that portfolio is actually more exponential. And you can see the value then of that over time. The estimated annual return, now 7% is an interesting choice here. If we say for example, the average annual return of the S&P 500 historically, we call that 10%. You can see the way that affects your returns. And essentially, the higher estimated annual return or the average annual return that we're going to be using, the higher that is, the bigger the component of interest in your final valuation. So if we drop this to something a little bit more, let's say a little bit more like a cash asset that might be earning interest in a savings account, for example, let's drop that to 4%. You can see that the compounding effect is still there. It's still adding value. That value is still compounding, generating more value, but the actual base number that you've invested begins to contribute for more. Now, the general rule is, if you're getting a 10% annual return, your money's going to double every 7 years. And again, that will then double again at year 14, etc., etc. So it's well worth modeling this out. You can set up your own graphs if you want in Excel, etc. We make all that information available to you here. And just for the sake of argument here, we'll drop this down to a 10-year period. And again, just to highlight, on a shorter time frame, there's been less opportunity for this compounding effect to take place. And so even if we jump the estimated annual return back up to 10%, you'll see that the actual component, the interest component of your final valuation is actually smaller. So this is a long game that you want to play. This is the slow and steady approach to, for example, investments that most people would be talking about nowadays as being the standard practice of a diversified portfolio, buying the market. And so most people would be using this kind of a calculator as a very rough way of creating some financial projections over the time of whatever it is they're investing for, normally retirement, for example. And that is how you use a compound interest calculator. Don't forget to like and subscribe.